Today we have Mary Esther Judy from Fallen Stars Stories with us. So we're very lucky to have Mary today at Tribes Press, and we're going to talk about children's books, and the magnificent picture books are the first thing we're going to talk about this morning. So Mary, do you have recommendations of wonderful, you are the #1 reviewer that we know in Ireland. Do you have recommendations of picture books for children?
I do, and particularly because we're going through these pandemic times, I think we start out with something that's going to help smaller children understand what's happening and how, why things are the way they are now, how they're happening, and to try to remove the anxiety. And one I would recommend, first off, is going to be COVID Monster from Tribes Press by Marguerite Tonery, in fact. Beautiful illustrations by Fabrice Maitre. A lovely book that just very simply explains to them, no, we can't do this and we can't do that, because the COVID monster, and there he is right on the cover. Can you see him there?
Yeah.
That the COVID monster has come for a visit. And beautiful book that allows children not to internalize all of this and build up a lot of fear. I mean, he doesn't look particularly creepy or scary there, but he is very messy and very gunky, and he is something to be avoided by washing our hands and keeping our distance and not taking him for visits to see other people, our friends and our family and our grannies.
Yeah.
Very, it's a lovely book. It really is.
So the idea behind that book was, again, I suppose now more than ever, we're talking about, I just read an article even in the newspaper this morning that 20% of people are suffering from depression or anxiety, and depression and anxiety during this pandemic times in Ireland, but I'm sure that's all over the world. And I think the children are feeling that anxiety too. And it's a year in a child's life is a very long time, I think.
And it's a very long time.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for us really to try our best to help support children's mental health now, because we talk constantly, the statistics in the newspaper are all about the adults and how adults are dealing with it. And I just thought, well, what about the children? Because they can't get out of a stressful situation because they're dependents.
And they take their cues from the adults in the room, so to speak. So if the adults are anxious, if the adults are angry, if they're frustrated, pick up on that. And they can internalize this and start to wonder, well, is it something I did? Is it, am I to blame, particularly if the COVID monster happens to come and visit into home? Yeah. And the COVID monster's visit is beautiful for letting them know it's nothing you did, in a very simple and clear way that the youngest child can understand.
And there's a question we're asked constantly, because we have our online shop on tribespress.com/shop. And on our online shop, we always get this message or phone calls or emails say, what is the age range of a picture book? Because different people have different age ranges, depending on the website that a lot of different people go on. There are independent bookshops, websites have different ages for picture books. And it's a tricky one because you explained it, Mary, you have had years working in bookshops. You were the manager of children's section in Dubray. You are incredibly experienced in this. And I'm sure you've had plenty of aunties, uncles, grandparents, parents say, what age range is a picture book suitable for?
Well, frankly, all ages. Yeah. That's the easy answer. I had people coming and saying to me things like, well, I want them to read a proper book now. They're 5. That's great. They want to move forward, but picture books are proper books. And the visual literacy involved in picture books is hugely important to a child's growth and development. It's the pictures that allow them to explore further what the text is about. The text can be very simple, and it can be appropriate for, little teeny, you can read them to babies, of course. Mm. And the bright, colorful pictures, when they're engaging with those, when they're looking at those and examining those, that's what actually fires the brain and keeps it working and allows them to take in more knowledge. Mm. Most picture books are written for between those ages of, like, say, from birth, you can get board books, very simple baby books, storybooks to read to your baby, right on through up to 5, 6, that age range. Some of the picture books are wordier, and so they're more appropriate for, 5 through 8-year-olds. But generally speaking, I take great comfort in picture books. And sometimes when the world is overwhelming me, I will pull out a picture book and read it.
I have to say I'm the same. I love
And get
And
so
when
much
well
out
illustrated.
on different levels. And that's the thing is people, children take things at different levels at different ages. So while initially it's just very simple what's in front of them, as their visual literacy builds and as their literacy in general builds, they start to see the subtleties that are built in it. Like Maurice Sendak, if you told him he wrote children's books, he would get very, very irritated with you. He was kind of a grumpy guy anyway, but he just wrote books. He wasn't thinking, let's make this for ages 2 to 5.
Yeah.
He was just writing a book.
Yeah.
It just happened to be a picture book.
Yeah.
Picture books are very sophisticated, really.
And what I love about them is the illustration, because if you get a really good illustrator, like I love the illustration and that particular illustration, Cope Monsters Visit, it says a lot, because
one picture is worth 1,000 words. You don't need.
A little girl came to me and she said, he's not getting my teddy bear. Cool monster, so he's not getting my teddy bear. So she kind of she understood it very well from that simple illustration that, no, I'm keeping my teddy bear at home, he's staying safe. I'm staying at home, I'm staying safe. Simple things.
You see the general message of things got out there.
Yeah.
And in a way where she wasn't, he's not getting my teddy bear. There are things I can do.
Yeah. And isn't that the key to it all? It's about self-efficacy. If you can let a child feel empowered some way, they can come out of that place of anxiety.
Exactly.
What else have you on the list there, Mary? I'm excited.
On the picture books, this is a new book out, and this is one that deals with fears. Okay. And it is by one of my very favorite Irish authors. It is Patricia Ford's Imagine. And you can see there is Granny and a little girl there. And the little girl confides in her granny that she has all kinds of fears, ghosts and vampires and pirates and all kinds of scary, scary things to her. And the grandma has a solution for her. And her solution is, when one of these fears comes up, is, like she's afraid of monsters. So monsters, said Grandma, why don't you just imagine them in orange tutus dancing in a field of daisies? And again, we've got these beautiful.
Oh, that's very well. Oh, the illustrator. Who is the illustrator, Mary, of this book?
The illustrator is the lovely Elena Brasilina from Brazil, I believe.
Wow, that's a beautiful illustration.
And it empowers the child with their own imagination. You can face anything. It's all in how you perceive it. It's what you do with it. Right down from ghosts and goblins and vampires and monsters and things like that, all the way down to her biggest fear. When I was tucked up in bed, Grandma read me a story. I got very, very tired and closed my eyes. And in the end, she asked Grandma not to go. Don't leave the room. And what's the matter, love? Said Grandma. So I told her, I'm afraid that someday you'll go away and leave me forever.
Oh, gosh, that's every child's fear.
That's every child's fear. And Grandma, of course, has the perfect answer, because grandmas do. Leave you, said Grandma. I'll never leave you. Imagine me right here in your heart, because that's where I'm always going to be. And you can imagine me wearing a yellow polka dot bikini if you like. She is with her yellow polka dot bikini.
Well, an illustrator, she really set the tone there, the illustrator. Made it.
Yeah.
She brought the.
It is that, again, that business of empowering the child to take some kind of control over these things. Fears.
Really, when I think about it as a psychologist, that's cognitive behavioral therapy in a book, because that's what you
exactly
teach CBT. You know, for people who have
Yeah,
post-traumatic
exactly.
stress disorder, you teach them like they have this fear that comes up, or an intrusive thought, and you just get them to imagine it as just something different, something that is not as threatening. And there it is, CBT in a
Exactly.
book, Imagine by Patricia
Yeah.
Ford.
And it gives them tools, and that's what we need to do with the younger children, is give them tools. You know, fears are very real to these children. When they say, I'm afraid of ghosts, there's no point in saying, oh, there's no such thing as ghosts,
Hmm.
because that's not the level on which they're taking things.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're telling me that, but, you know, it's very real to them. If you give them tools with which to deal with these fears, imagine this, do that,
Yeah.
you know,
And then they're
here's,
empowered and they can
and then
change
they're
their world.
empowered. And then they're empowered. Um, let's go on to another thing that I think can empower children is that sense of belonging and community. And this series
Molly
by
and Stormy.
Malachi Doyle and illustrated by Andrew Whitson, one of my favorite series. Let's see, can I get the whole?
I
I
have
gotta
this
get the
book
book
in
on.
Irish and I love it. We're
This
not
is,
Margaret Ian.
oh, that's fabulous, and they are all available in English, Irish, and Welsh. So any Welsh speakers out there, you can get them for that. This is the first one, Molly and the Stormy Sea, where she wakes up one morning to find that her daddy, who is a fisherman, has not come home yet, and there was a terrible storm. So they're all very worried, and it is about not only Molly doing what she can do. She goes down to the sea and she offers the sea her dollies and her treasures. Just bring my daddy home to me. And off the side, you can see the fire is built. The community is there. They're singing, they're praying, they're doing everything they can bring our people home. And he does come home. And so it is that sense of, while you've got the fear, there are things you can do, there are hopes you can have, and you are not alone. And there's Molly and the Stormy
I
Sea.
thought for that Molly and the Stormy Sea that the one thing that I gleaned from that, well, I gleaned a lot from it, but what I thought was really important in it is that sense of community. What you've just said, you're not alone,
Yes.
and I think that's really important for children. Because they're feeling alone now, because their friends are not in school, they're not in school, they can't go out to play in the swings on the swings and slides or wherever they want to go.
We can chat like this on Zoom and things like that, but you're still missing that feeling of contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great to see that together we are stronger, and that's what that book brings to the reader.
Exactly.
Together we are stronger.
It really comes together in the second one, Molly and the Whale, where a whale has been beached on their little teeny island, and the entire community literally comes together to free this whale. And there's something that everyone can do. And it is that feeling.
Malachi Doyle's book, Molly and the Stormy Sea, and Molly and the Whale, Malachi Doyle. So for people to remember that.
And there's also Molly and the Lighthouse, which is out.
Oh yeah, I saw that one too. I have that.
Now, during the first pandemic, they did an online coloring book for you to download and color Molly and the Shutdown. And it was all about what Molly was doing when she couldn't do anything. And I'm really delighted to say that it is being produced as a full color picture book.
Oh.
And it's out there. So that's going to be something really special and really lovely.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I love the illustrations. Who's the illustrator? Could we just...
Andrew Whitson.
That illustrator has done a fantastic piece of work on those books.
He has
the story.
Any of his books that you find, he's got a rake of, and I'm sorry, I can't tell you what they are because they're in Irish and I can't remember the titles, and my Irish is appalling. I'd only mispronounce them anyway. But they are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I've got them all upstairs, and I didn't want to do them because it's in Irish and my Irish is terrible. I am going to quickly mention
people who love the Irish language can look those up as well. And that's another thing. So Malachi Doyle's books, Molly and the Stormy Sea, Molly and so many different things.
Yeah, the Molly series.
The Molly books. And Cove Monsters Visit is also in the Irish language. Cove Monsters Visit is actually in 8 languages. So people have a wide range of languages that they can now tap into when they want.
Even Chinese, it's even in Chinese. That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
So, but it's great that the diversity that has come into Ireland, as we're becoming more diverse as a population, and our books are
Absolutely.
becoming more diverse in their language, and even in their interpret. Our story is slightly changing. Our story has now that richness that we have from other cultures. And we can see that coming through even our books, because the book you have there from Patricia Ford had a Brazilian illustrator.
Yes.
You know, we have all of this richness now that we were devoid of. Maybe we had a different type of richness before, but this is a beautiful
Yes.
richness that's coming with diversity. And we can
I
see
think
that the books are being translated to so many languages now in Ireland.
it really makes sense, particularly in Ireland, because of that whole tradition of storytelling, of communication, and we are an island, and so lots of people have always come here. But the love of the language is embedded in the DNA, I think. And so therefore, when you add other languages to that, there is that excitement that does come up of, another way to express. A friend of mine once talked about the Irish language to me, and he said he loved it. He absolutely loved it because there were so many ways to say how you feel,
Mm, mm,
you
yes.
know, and different words for different things. And as more and more languages come in and more multicultural ways of expressing, illustrators and writers even that come and live here and publish here, they're embraced because there is that love of expression, the love of the language.
Mhm.
And I think it's very important that we keep passing it on to our children.
I think so.
I am going to quickly mention one Irish language book, and I want to thank my friends at Fata because they always give me the translations so I can read them, and my Irish is improving slowly,
Well
but
done.
improving.
Well done.
Yeah. This is a lovely little book by Gemma Brennan called Percy Peacock.
Yeah.
Percy Peacock.
Yeah.
And it is a story about a child he's very shy, very timid, and it really helps with children who are quite insular, quite afraid to go out and reach out, because it expresses this feeling we all have our particular gifts and we all have the moment to use them. And even if you're shy and don't want to talk, but your time to shine is going to come. And you can't be afraid. So that one is a beautiful one. Illustration by Tarsila Cruz.
Sorry. And who's the author again? Mary Percy Peacock with who's the author?
Gemma Brennan.
Okay, brilliant, Gemma Brennan.
Yeah.
It's a nice. I like the idea of that book because I think it is. You're right. A child. There's some children, but just by their temperament, they're quite shy and quite reserved and quite afraid. And it's a genetics almost, it's their temperament. They were born this way, and it's a lovely to have a book for that child.
Absolutely.
So they don't feel like they're not normal.
Yes.
This is okay, and
they don't have to be loud and the star of the show all the time. Their time to shine will come.
And that's a beautiful sentiment.
Yeah, it's lovely, and it's a lovely, lovely book. And the way I always, like I said, my Irish is improving very slowly. Again, thank you for Tafata. But the thing that's helping me with, because I do get a lot of Irish language books to review, it's better if I have the translation, but sometimes it's just the pictures. And then I can grab one of the grandkids and say, stand here, read this book to me for, a few minutes. Yeah. I want to hear what it sounds like. And that's what I always do, is I want to hear what it sounds like in the Irish language.
And speaking of that now, hear what it sounds like. There are many audio books now that are coming out. Do you think there's a place for an audio book for for picture books for children?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That really helps, particularly at times when we're rushing around. And, you can sit the child there with an audiobook, and you can make the dinner, you can do the washing up, you can do the cleaning. You can have your own Zoom meeting and just plug them into it's better than giving them a video game.
Yeah.
Just give them audiobooks. It's definitely, I think, the way to go
Yeah.
for a lot of
And
kids.
even
And
have the physical book in their hand, and at a time that
yeah,
you can't physically read it again,
yeah,
again.
yes, yeah.
That,
If you've read it 52 times already,
yeah.
it's very helpful to have another voice there. And children respond to another voice in a different way.
I have a little niece, and she's a year. She wouldn't be fully a year and a half, but she
Hmm.
has a bookshelf filled with books. And when I am talking to her on FaceTime, she runs through a bookshelf and she picks up her favorite book to for me to see it, and for me to read it, for her dad to put me on her on his lap and put me on the screen and read it, because I'm there now. Her auntie is there now. Read it again, Dad. And
And reading to children is so very important. It's something that you have to do, I think, from the beginning. And I read to my kids up until their teenage years.
yeah.
And then I couldn't catch them anymore. So they were busy doing all kinds of other things. But I discovered they read to each other,
Oh
which was
God, yeah.
really interesting. Um, but that's such an important thing because it helps build the bond.
Yeah.
It's very reassuring. Um, Putting a child on your lap and reading them a book is not just reading them a book. It's showing them you have the time for them. It's giving them love.
Yeah.
And particularly if it's a book you can really get into and enjoy with them, and let them interrupt and let them show you things in the book because you may not have seen it before.
Yeah.
There's little details in
Yeah.
those illustrations. There's, and little thoughts that come into their heads when they've heard the story again and again and again. And suddenly something occurs to them and they want to know. It's such an important bonding thing for the family. I've always,
I
reading to children is love.
I think it is. I think there is a real bond there when you have a child in your lap and you're reading some. It's like that's their moment with mommy, or that's their moment with daddy or granny or auntie or uncle or whoever it is, or big brother even, or big sister. But that's their moment together. Yeah.
That would be the two things that I would say that would really consolidate this feeling of belonging.
Yeah.
Read to them and let them see that you read.
Yeah.
Have books around. I had a good friend who, one of the things that they did in their family is not only did they read to their children, but there was a time when they just all sat down and read. Mom had a
Yeah.
book, Dad had a book. Each of the kids had a book. They read to themselves. If they had any questions about what they were reading, if they wanted to comment on something, they could. It was a real together time. And I think we need that sense of togetherness and
I've
that sense of
walked.
belonging.
I have walked into houses like that where they were all just reading.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's quite unusual to see, because, well, it's not unusual, but it's quite I would say spectacular to watch, because you walk
Yeah,
into this sitting room and one child is sprawled one end of the couch, the other child is the other end of the couch, somebody is here, somebody is there, and they're all in completely different magical worlds, and
absolutely.
yet united in those magical worlds, even though they're quite different. But it's a lovely thing to see. It's just amazing to see it. It takes you back, I think, a little bit when you see
Yeah,
it.
and it's really I'm always impressed when I walk into something like that with the feeling of I have walked into something intimate is happening there,
Yeah,
something
definitely.
exceedingly personal
Yeah,
is happening there.
yeah,
And if somebody walks into that, you notice that everybody's voice drops very quiet.
yeah.
You don't want to interrupt what's going on. There's
Yeah.
something really special and magical going on, and so we don't break the spell, and that's lovely.
Well, I
Shall we?
want to. So we're at an end of the picture books for now,
Yeah, for
and
now.
so I
I
want to.
could do
Yeah.
picture books for
Oh
like
God.
3 days.
So I want to thank you for speaking to us about picture books for children 0 to 6 and onwards.
Yeah,
And so these can be bought. So we what we discussed was COVID Monsters Visit. It's a book I wrote, so thank you for recommending it.
it's
And it can be found online on tribespress.com/shop Tribes Press. And then We had Patricia Ford's book Imagine, and
Yes.
then we
Published
had
by Little Island, yeah.
and
Published, yeah.
sorry, Mary, you were saying?
Published by Little Island.
And
Then the Malachy Doyle
Malachy
books.
Doyle's books, and Gemma Brannock's book,
From
Percy
Peacock.
Peacock, from Foot to Foot.
The Malachy Doyle books are published by Graphic. Those books, what I would recommend, and any other books really, is you can go online to the publisher. There's a lot of small publishers that will ship directly to you. But if you don't have the access to do that, go online to your local independent bookshop or call them. There are people there that are taking orders.
And that's the key to it all. Please, please, please support your local bookshop.
Support your local publisher, support your local bookshops. We need them. It's a tough time for them too.
Yeah.
And they, they're happy to send it to you. They're happy to order it if they don't have it in, and they'll ship it out to you.
Mary, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. This is the end of part 1 of our conversation, which has been all about picture books. And so part 2, what will we be talking about in part 2? What age group are we going in?
The more middle grade level, and maybe up into the teens.
So we're going 8 to 12 maybe, or
8 to 12, and then 12 plus will be coming.
Okay. Yeah. So Mary, part 2, everybody come back for part 2, and this will be for 8 to 12-year-olds. If you have children or grandchildren or anybody in your life in that age group. Thank you very much, Mary, for taking some.
You're very welcome. Thank you for asking me.
Talk to us. Take care. Bye-bye.